Excuse me. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Legend Non-Classics. This is episode number 32, 26, and Doubleshot 31, 20. Got two DC trades, kind of wrapping up two things this one. First up we have is Green Lantern War Journal by Philip Kennedy Johnson. This collects issue 7 through 12 of the Green Lantern War Journal series, along with the epilogue story from Green Lantern, Volume 7, Issue 15. Mostly put, we basically deal with a lot of stuff here. Of course, like I mentioned, Philip K. Johnson's writer with Montos on the artwork. The cover art here is Montos and Paquel Ferrer. So we deal with this sorrowful stuff here, and of course you have John just trying to deal because he's off-world. And we see his mom, who's actually suffering from dementia. He sees his daughter, and then we see Steel. Yes, Steel is here because he's a supporting character in this book for reasons. Guy appears briefly in the book. Yes, so and they mention stuff that happened in the main Green Lantern title. Of course, this is a side title. Good amount of action here. Yeah. And I believe it was also in this book that did show that, I think in this book here is what showed that that Sinestro is a member of the Red Lantern Corps for some reason. Yes, despite the fact he has his own corps, he's a Red Lantern now. Like, this came completely out of the blue. Like, I saw this in Green Lantern, I'm like, wait, why is he a Red Lantern? Like, did I miss something? And this was complete random. It's like, yeah, next Green Lantern Corps. That's stuff here with Kilowog here. Yeah. And like I said, the story is wrapped up with the issue from Green Lantern, which there was the epilogue for the story. Yeah, this initially was an ongoing series, despite the fact this is listed as a limited series, despite the fact it was treated as an ongoing. The book itself is pretty good. I give roughly a 9 out of 10. Me. Final thoughts on Green Lantern War Journal. Yeah, this is a very interesting title per se. It's nothing terrible. Oh, by the way, the story continues in the Green Lantern Civil Corps special. Yep, which probably is going to be collected in the first trade for the current Green Lantern Corps volume. My guess is DC probably released this title because they need something for John Stewart, because there's some stuff with him. Also, this trade series does not contain the one-shot that basically has become Emerald Knight, which is weird. Now, also, John Stewart, for the longest time, DC never changed his Green Lantern suit. Never. But yet with this book, it's different. Where it's changed for some reason. Not really sure why. I do appreciate, though, the fact we feature Steel in this book. Because, of course, they already wrapped up the Steel title. So we feature Steelworks in here a little bit. And yeah, also in the case of his mom, like I think she reported she did die at some point. Yes, I think she did. Ellie, of course, would kind of continue with John Stewart, probably over in the Green Lantern Corps title. But there's not really much else to say about this book. Well, I'd say it's as good as the Jeremy Adams Green Lantern book. No, it's by K. Johnson. It just feels weird him doing John Stewart. I think he did an excellent job with Superman, but John Stewart, I think he did an okay job with the book. Next up we have is Kneel Before Zod. Yep, this title. Every time this book was solicited, I basically said every time. The title itself is basically a nod to the famous line from Superman 2, where Terrence Stamp, as Gerald Zod, as a matter of fact, he's even drawn like Terrence Stamp, just younger. Yes, for some weird reason, he's drawn like Terrence Stamp. And he says in a scene where he basically took control of the White House. This book contains the prologue story from Action Comics 1060, along with the, I think this was 8 issues. Yeah, 8 issues. This book is written by Joe Casey, art by Dan McDade and Scott Hanna, who also inks for issue 7. Yeah. By the way, the final trade to collect stuffing from the period of like the Action Comic issues from 1050 to 1060. Yes. And a little fun fact, this was the 2060 was the third time the book basically set up a mini-series. As for why DC did this for, probably for marketing value, where like this B story basically set up this series. So we start with the Action Comic issue, which for some reason they didn't include the actual cover, and he's talking to various races here. We see his beautiful wife, Urza, I think her name is. Now, Zod himself in this one shot here is not drawn like Terrence Stamp, but in the miniseries he is. Here he's drawn like normal, and of course he has stuff with Chris Zod. Basically, it's his adventures on this planet. It's him ruling like New Kandor, and he's seeing hallucinations of Jor-El, despite the fact this man has been long. It's weird explaining the whole thing with Jor-El because Dan Jurgens revealed him to be Mr. Oz. Yeah, he was an original character who debuted with the whole Rebirth stuff. And here, for some reason, they draw him like the way he was in pre-Flashpoint with this suit here. Not sure why. And the whole book is basically Zod's basically trying to deal with stuff with his rebellious son. And it's him basically the way he rules his planet. It's like DC had this idea for the moment he popped up in Green Lantern on Hal Jordan Green Lantern Corps. And then, of course, basically his son disappears. That's basically explained in the Sin Sons miniseries by Peter J. Tomasi. There's one point his wife takes control, but then eventually she falls from a coma. You're like, kneel before me. Yeah. And it's basically, well, General Zod basically is in control of this planet. And there's stuff here with the Eradicator. Surprisingly, despite being a Superman type title, there's no appearance by Superman himself, so like this is a spin-off of basically his title. You're like, really? Yes, really. Yeah, by the way, Zod's first name is Drew. Yes. Believe it or not, Zod's first name is Drew. A name that's very rarely spoken in comics. Why? I'm guessing that they don't think his name is cool as Zod. Yeah, then eventually when he's a prisoner as a kid, and that's up with the Legion of Zod. People who just follow Zod. At one point he loses his hair, but he grows back. He's briefly put in prison. Now here's where he sort of looks like Terrence Stamp with this outfit here. Yeah, that outfit reminds me a lot of the outfit Terrence Stamp wore in Superman 2. That's where the knot comes in. I'm guessing they probably took inspiration from the movie for that. And then we see the Emerald Eye show up. And there's a reason why the Emerald Eye is here, because the Emerald Empress is here. Yes. First time appearing in comics since Supergirl by Sterling Gates. That was the last time she appeared. That was back in 2017. This came out like last... I think it was like last year. I think this came out. Yeah, this just came out like for like last year. This is the first time she's probably appeared in comics in probably like 8 years. It is shocking to see her in this book. By the way, there's something of her being a beautiful woman that she at some point like sleep with Zod. No, because Zod is faithful. Eventually, he does use the same power as Superman. Then the book ends where we have Sinestro as a Red Lantern. And the last book is these two working together. Well, first they fight each other, and they have to reluctantly work together because of stuff related to their sons, which is probably continuing over in the book 4 Sin Sons miniseries. This book is pretty good. I get the book roughly a 9 out of 10. It's something, though, that DC did this. As far as I can tell, I think he's like the second Superman villain ever to get his own series. Because for the longest time, it was just Lex Luthor who got a series. He was the only one. No one else ever got one. Some had some one-shots, but never an actual series. I mean, can you think of any other Superman villain besides Lex Luthor and General Zod who had their own series? The answer is none. Which is kind of weird. You probably think, oh, what about Brainiac? Has he ever had a book? Shockingly, no. Brainiac has never had a solo book of his own. I think the reason why DC doesn't do a push for giving Superman villains their own miniseries, probably because readers probably don't find it interesting. Zod is fine. I think people have no problem with Zod because he's probably just as popular as Lex Luthor, so at least he's basically a name people will probably buy. But if you give a title, let's say Parasite, for example, people would not be interested. Livewire, there might be a little bit of interest in her, given the fact she's very popular, given the fact she debuted in the Superman animated series. But you're thinking, okay, what about, is like any other major villain from... Because the thing with Superman's Rogues Gallery, despite the fact he has a very colorful Rogues Gallery, they're not as put out there as, let's say, Batman, Flash. Yeah, those two get their villains like out there. Do I think that they should get their own series? Well, Batman's had a few of his villains basically get their own book. Flash has never had one basically where he's had one of his villains get their own solo book. They've had a mini series for the Rogues for Rainbow, but never like a solo book for one character. I think because in the case of Flash, people like the villains together as a whole instead of separately. Batman, not much issue there. Currently, we have Two-Face getting a book right now. But in the case of Superman, with the exception of a handful of villains, I don't think a lot of his villains are very popular. Because like Superman is still popular himself, but his villains, well, unless he's fighting, like... Okay, I'm going to top of villains on my head, which people do know of, but yet, if you ask to catch him, they might say yes, we've heard of these villains. But some of these other ones, basically, people are like, who? Okay, villains you've heard of: Lex Luthor, General Zod, Toyman, the Parasite, Darkseid, Livewire, Silver Branch. People kind of knew about her. Trying to think. I think that's it for casual fans. They might know who these people are. Here's ones people probably have no idea who these people are. The Prankster. If you ask a casual fan, they have no idea who the heck this guy is. Okay. Oh, Mixie. People know who Mixie is. Yeah, people know who he is. That's not an issue. Besides the Prankster, you probably all ask, like, is there any other villain people probably have never heard of before, yet hardcore fans know who these people are? The Krypton Man. The answer, if you ask a casual fan, like, who? Okay, Metallo. Yeah, people know who Metallo is. Alright. Zod. Yeah, people know who Zod is. Who doesn't know who Zod is? You're like, okay. I'm trying to think, basically, for Superman villains, because, basically, those ones I can personally think off the top of my head. Okay, Superman villains. Okay. Ultra Humanite. I'd say kind of a little bit due to his appearance in Justice League on the animated series. Cyborg Superman. I'd say yes. Doomsday. Yep. Bruno Magnum. Not a lot of people know who this guy is. Atomic Skull. Kind of the same thing. Bizarro. Oh yeah. Mongol. Yes. Manchester Black. I'd say kind of. Blaze and Santanis. People like, who? Brainiac 2, aka Viral Dogs. I'd say kind of because of his stuff with Legion. Chemico. Kind of. Composite Superman. Answer, casual fan. Who? Conduct. Dev M. Darga. Equus. Flora. That's basically Zod's wife. Probably people have reviews. Flashy Funk Man. Probably not. GOG. No. Imperix. I'd say a tiny bit of kinda because he was featured on like Green Lantern. I think so. Jaxer. No. Yes, Joker. People know who he is against Batman villain. Kelleback. Yes. Cobra. Kinda because of his appearance on Superman, Batman animated series. Kryptonite Man. No idea who this guy is. Laura Innes. Magpie. Kinda because of Beware the Batman. Mala. Mammoth. Morgan Edge. Yes, kind of, gets featured a couple times live action. Neutron. People probably think of the one from Superman 4. Nick O'Teen. People have no idea. Non. Works with Zod. Helgramite. Oba. I remember Sprankster. Hamilton. Usually he's a good guy. He's occasionally a bad guy in the comics. Quagmire. Rampage. Kind of. Quote X. Scorch. Solaris. Solomon Grundy. Yes, people kind of know who this guy is. Terra Man. I'd say a little bit of a kind of because he was featured just like Eliminated. Titano. Ultraman. Kind of. Ursa. Possibly. Volcana. Yes, people know who this woman is thanks to her appearance on Just Like TV show. Yeah, and get this. She finally made an appearance in the comics. In the issue of Black Lightning, which came out like last year, which is interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much basically all the villains I see here people may or may not have heard of. Yep. But that's pretty much it, particular review. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, channel notifications. Next up, when I get back from my little trip, I'm going to work on Fire Force next. Okay? See you. Bye.